Welcome to MAC Bleu, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and JJ Levensky, aka MAC Bleu.
Good afternoon, broadcasting or streaming, I guess is the better term, live from the MAC 6 studio. I'm Robert Johnson. He's JJ Levensky. How are you, JJ?
I'm great. You?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
We upped our wardrobe again.
Yeah, we upped the wardrobe again. It does get some interesting looks from the people that come in. That is, it gets... I'll tell the story later about my jacket and grandkids. They thought it would look great on my wife, if that tells you anything. And we got Daryl. Daryl is the guy that's actually driving the bus. And how's it going, Daryl?
It is going well.
Daryl is our producer. Daryl Robinson does a fantastic job. Today we have with us, and very glad to have, Lance Baker, who is the founding partner and principal of Synectic Design. Hey, Lance.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming in. I've known Lance for a while. You know nothing about Lance.
I hope to. By the end
of
this.
You're about to now.
Yeah.
Lance, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm.
Sure. So, Lance Baker, architect, moved out to Arizona in 1996, actually, from Missouri. Had to make the move for a better business environment out here.
Sure.
Not too much to do there. So came out here after college, started Synectic Design in 2000. So it's been about 23 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, got an early start. So
Awesome. What got you into architecture?
I always loved to build things, just kind of the creative problem-solving nature of, always tinkering, erector sets, just spent my whole childhood in the garage just tinkering on stuff, and it just kind of led into liking to build things. And so I always like to think of myself as a frustrated contractor more than an architect. But
no, I can relate to that.
Right?
No, and you are a contractor, and
I
consider
think we're
yourself
emphasizing the frustrated part.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Right.
we're all kind of that part.
Right.
No, that's very good. And your firm started in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So you started yourself. You didn't start working at some other place.
No,
first?
I did. Yeah,
Oh,
I worked for about 3 other firms
gotcha.
from 96 to about
Oh,
2000.
gotcha. Okay, sure.
And then kind of I had a business partner when I started the company. He was an older gentleman. He's still here in the Valley. He was more of a design architect guy who liked to just kind of wait for the phone to ring, and decided to go back to the big firm kind of world and be a designer. And I was a little more entrepreneurial, wanted to kind of get things moving a little faster. So
I
kind
can
of branched
see that.
off and started moving. So
Yeah, awesome.
So how's the, apart from being an architect, what's it like being an entrepreneur and business owner?
Well, it's something they don't teach you in architecture school, that's for
course.
sure. There's no business classes whatsoever, so you kind of learn the hard way, I guess. But everything's worked out well. I couldn't be happier. So
Yeah. So what types of construction?
literally,
Types of design.
Yeah. Literally, we do just about everything, and I think that's what's allowed us to really survive and thrive through a lot of downturns in the market. Coming out here in '96, I was just at the tail end of kind of the SNL stuff starting to pick back up.
Sure.
So everything was pretty good, and at the time I was working for firms doing everything from medical type projects to high-end residential, and then resort hotel type stuff. With this firm, we've done everything from federal government stuff, medical, healthcare, fast food, restaurant, office, warehouse, storage, industrial.
So you've been able
multifamily.
to, whatever is down, whatever is hot, that's what you can move to, and
Right.
that's a great business model.
For sure, because it's all design to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all creative problem solving. That's what architecture is to me. It's creative problem solving. Here's your set of constraints. Here's my rules I have to stay within. Now what can I do to make it the best it can be within those constraints?
Instead of being a niche, and there are a lot of architecture firms that are, strictly public or municipal work, et cetera, et cetera. So, it is I guess it's all the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think
A
if
drawing's
you're,
a drawing,
if you
building's a
like to
building.
design stuff, you're going to design everything you can from your desk to your house to your,
Yeah,
your jacket
great
you're
example.
wearing. I mean,
That was
Wow.
Lance. That
not
was
that
good.
jacket, but yeah,
Yeah, nobody would really. I don't think anybody designed this one. Looked more like an accident.
right. So to me, it's all design, no
Yeah.
matter what the product type is.
So Lance, are you like most shops in your peer group? I assume that most of the consultants are sub-consultants, or do you have any in-house things beyond the architecture?
No, it's all sub-consultants. I'd like to, doing a variety of different project types, I like to kind of use the right tool for the job.
Right.
So some consultants are stronger at certain project types than others. So it kind of makes sense
So you,
to
you
kind of,
match the best in class
Yeah.
as you see fit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. And then how many associates or proteges do you have then under your watch?
We have 10 right now.
Nice.
Yeah. I've been as high as 20, but honestly, we
How
kind
was
of,
that HR program?
that was really fun. Payroll was awesome every month. But no, over the last, starting in about 2003, we switched the software that we use. We started using what's called REVIT, which is a 3D architectural modeling software. So
That is relatively new, is it not?
it is, but we started it in 2003. So
Well, I had
Long-
heard it
quite
before,
some
but I
time.
hadn't seen it much.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep. So that kind of changed the way that we do things, where now we don't have any real drafts people or job captains anymore. People are now, most of my employees are all project managers. So they have to understand how to build a building from the ground up, because you're modeling it in 3D from day one.
Right.
So if you don't understand how the stud wall sits on the stem, you're not going to have much luck modeling something.
Now,
So-
is that the difference in a designer and a project manager? Because I people ask me this all the time, and I really don't know the proper answer, because I've got buddies that are architects, but their role is a project manager. And so, can you explain the difference? Or
To me, it's kind of, a project manager is someone that takes a project all the way through, from conception through construction.
whether it be design it,
Correct.
in this case,
Right. So we'll have some staff that are very strong in design. I like to participate in the design. My business partner likes to do a lot of design. And we have some staff that are really kind of budding designers. So we let them do whatever they're capable of doing. It's not everybody's
Right.
niche. It's kind of difficult to do. It sounds easy and everybody wants to be an architect, but it's actually sometimes really hard to come up with,
Sure.
fresh concepts or ideas or solve the problems, right?
Right.
So I don't think everybody is automatically a designer that's an architect. I think there are
That's a
people
great point.
right.
That's a great point.
It's a big delineation when you really think about it.
Yeah, because it's one thing to be able to
Build it or design it, draw it.
draw it for building,
Right.
and draw it for the aesthetics or the ease of use or traffic flows or any of those kinds of things.
Well, there's the technical efficacy versus the creative spirit, and where they combine.
Right,
is-
it's the blending of
Yeah.
the two. That's why,
Yeah.
I like to think of it as creative problems.
I wish we're going to have to play that quote again. I made my head explode with the technical efficacy and
Efficacy.
Yeah, say it again. Say the whole thing again.
technical efficacy on one side and the creative spirit on the other.
Wow.
Where that meets,
Wow.
that's the nirvana of an architect.
Oh, you had to throw Nirvana in there. Okay, yeah, I get it.
Oh, I could go utopian. Does
Yeah,
that better?
oh, yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, this is getting worse.
I did word scramble this morning, so
Yeah.
I feel more intellectual.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's still got the calendar on his desk.
Yeah,
with the
he
word
does.
of the day.
Oh man, that
The Far
was solid.
Side?
That was solid. That was solid. So you bring up this whole BIM thing or not BIM thing, the Revit
Revit.
thing, which
It's
goes
BIM,
in.
yeah.
It is BIM.
So what we do on our end has gotten. I mean, it's very heavy in Revit, and we're finding that there's a lot of engineering firms that still don't use Revit.
Well,
Very true.
so let me ask the same question differently, and then you come back. So, Lance, if you had to put a percentage of your peer group, and let's stay more in like the commercial industrial than the residential, how much is Revit being utilized in the marketplace?
For other architecture firms?
Yeah, just take a guess.
It would be a total guess because I don't really focus
I know,
on
but
other
for the
firms too
leaders,
much,
for
but
the listeners and viewers, just throw out a number.
maybe 50%.
Okay.
I would say it's probably increasing, but I think it increases very slowly. So
Okay.
it's a big commitment of time and resources and
Yeah.
capital.
It's not cheap.
No, and just the training. So,
But aren't all the new, when I say kids, because we're a bunch of old guys, all the kids that are coming out of school that's their training though, right?
Somewhat, yeah. It depends on what school you go to. Like my school was more of a design school, so I didn't even know AutoCAD when I got out of college, and it took me about 3 months to find a job because I could only draw by hand. So, it's not something that you can just assume. And
So
just
it is
because
not
you-
automatic. It's not
No.
that you're being taught Revit.
No. Usually, if we hire somebody right out of college, we're typically training them for the first 2 or 3 years before
Very
value
interesting.
really comes into play. Right.
So let's go down that rabbit hole because we could all talk about human capital and labor till we're blue in the face.
Right.
What's it been like you as an architect trying to find good help?
It's hard. It's really hard. Yeah, especially when the market gets really busy. Just
Like
a
now, maybe?
contractor, like a contractor trying to find a good project manager or superintendent. I mean,
Are you looking?
salaries go up. It's hard to find. You have to try to lure people away, I guess. But most of the people that we have in our office, very fortunate, have been there for a long time. We try to have a really fun culture and try to really reward people and treat them as equals and do our best to maintain the same staff because consistency is everything. So
Right.
So, what is it what would you say is like your, I'm not going to say niche, but what is it you're trying, you like educating clients most about?
I think I really like when clients are open to utilizing different material systems, different
Okay.
mechanical systems, not for the sake of doing something different, but doing something better.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
giving
great one.
giving you an opportunity to, use a new construction method that maybe it hasn't been thought about that much before.
Mm-hmm.
But if I've used it myself and it makes a ton of sense, then I'm going to try to promote the heck out of it because I think it's just the right thing to do.
Right. And so you're not afraid of new technologies or new things. I mean, so many GCs, owners, builders, I've done it this way for 20 plus years. I'm never going to change my mind. This is the way I'm always going to do it.
Right.
You're not that way. You don't object to.
No, I think you should question almost everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think you're doing a disservice,
Yeah, I agree.
to your client if you're not rethinking what they're asking you.
So on that note, Lance, are you seeing that more and more of your meetings, let's say especially now and in the recent past, where it truly is the three-legged stool where you and the GC and the owner are sitting there together collaborating on this, or do you still see where it's typically just you and the owner?
No. We love to do design build, and especially the government projects that we started doing, let's say in 2003-04 when the other market kind of slowed down, really got us into more design build, and I like it because it really makes everybody accountable as far as the decision-making process. There's nothing worse than designing something and then having a GC come back and say, well, I would have preferred if we would have done it like this. And you're already permitted and already on the road. And
I wouldn't know what that. I've never
right,
heard that
right?
before
Never
in my
heard
life.
that. Right.
Well, so this is something that I would like to have explained by either one of you. But you bring up design build, and we'll throw it to you first, Lance. What do you define when you say design build? What is that process?
Well, I don't necessarily mean the contractual form
Yeah,
of
I get
design
it.
build,
Mhm.
although we've done that. And a lot of times the government projects are true design build where I'm hired by a contractor,
Correct.
and that's fine. But it's more design assist where the owner or developer will bring in a contractor early on. Like we might have schematic design done. Then we'll bring in a contractor to start having them do preliminary pricing on different concepts and ideas or materials
Perfect.
And through that, we're all kind of, speaking the same language. You're almost value engineering as you're going through
That's
the
what I
whole
was
project.
looking for. Yeah.
Right.
So that there's a lot. I mean, I've been involved in projects that were design build, and they felt like it was the plans are just no. If I change my
Cartoons.
mind,
Yeah,
it's
cartoons.
like that.
Well, I'll even go one step further because all three of us in our collective businesses, we're forced to do that at a whole nother level right now. So let me
I would
let me
agree.
give the example. Is I'm working on a design assist right now too, where we were brought in before. Well, it doesn't matter. A little bit before the architect that the owner wanted to use, and we both, which I'm proud that they said the same thing. It's like we will not go any further until the other part is part of this team.
Right.
Because in the crazy market that we're in, we can't deliver on that. So in that case, like we had an actual meeting this morning where, and you can appreciate this, Lance, they asked me, JJ, based on the market, how do you want to build this shell?
Right.
And I said, well, you tell me what the programming is going to be first. Just give me a design concept of what you want it to be square footage wise and a little bit of a programming mechanism. Then I'll come back and answer that question. But I can tell you this is what we can't have because of lead times.
Right.
Working that backwards. I said the rest of it, we can make the math work if we can just get over a couple of these hurdles.
Sure.
And so to answer your question, but now to your point, Robert, we're going much deeper. Like we used to always maybe get MP&E contractors involved.
Right.
And for Daryl, that's mechanical, plumbing, and electrical. Because he's always like,
He's gonna
what do
ask
those
the-
acronyms
He's
mean?
going to ask the question at some point here.
MP&E or MEP, they get transposed. We're going to secondary and tertiary levels in those conversations, i.e. we're coming to you like Robert, like, hey guys, could you guys prefab this whole curtain wall or wall assembly to save 3 or 4 months? And not that we didn't do that level of investigation earlier, but we're going a lot deeper, a lot sooner because we don't have the luxury of waiting. Right? Would you agree, Lance?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sure. And not only that, but leveraging your subs and say, how much can you do?
Yeah.
You know,
No, no, it's a great point because this is the transformation of what we all do. This is, it is changing, and
I'd call it evolution, not transformation.
That's actually great because I like that. If you've seen some of the subs that I've had to deal with, evolution fits. Much better than transformation.
For those of you watching us, I don't know, the way we're dressed, we're not one step above that.
Yeah, the evolution isn't working. But yeah, it's an interesting time. We are being brought in as a prefab people, company much sooner, and talking to owners. Well, you know this. I mean, Lance has, for the sake of transparency, has introduced us to several owners. Now, in those cases, design was already underway, but we talked to a lot of people that there's a floor plan, and we get involved very early and do the design. Help drive the design. So I guess it is in a certain aspect. Design build is kind of the direction everybody would want to go to if you can VE the thing as it goes along. I mean, that's in a perfect world.
I think you, especially nowadays, you can't afford to go backwards.
Yeah.
So you can't get to the finish line and then say, now we need to redesign it. Now we need to change the construction type.
That's happened to you, hasn't it?
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
We've
So
had to
here-
convert buildings from steel to concrete and vice versa, or wood to steel.
Mm-hmm.
And in today's market, that's just a deal killer.
Yeah.
For developers who are trying to get to market as fast as they can.
And there's the key.
So you've got to value engineer the whole way along, and the best way to do that is collaboratively with the GC and the developer and the architect.
Yep.
And the subconsultants.
Yeah. All right, so we've solved that world problem. Now let's move to the next one.
Right.
Is even if we're in the model that we just described, where it's design build, design assist, where everyone's at the table, or back to the conventional model, where you're working solely on behalf of the owner. Municipalities, your struggle of getting things through in a timely manner. So speak to you. I know you can't speak for your entire industry, but speak to you specifically of what are your challenges and how are you circumventing those on behalf of the developer to get past these 1 and 2 year design reviews and all those kind of things. Because we're not here to chastise the municipalities. They are also under
siege.
They're under siege. They don't have enough people. They don't have enough resources. So how is your community helping navigate those waters?
Right. I think the biggest thing that we can do to help the developers with that whole process is just the relationships that we've developed over the last, 25 years of being here in the Valley, knowing the right people at the different municipalities to try to talk to help get assistance and explaining to them why. Everybody is crying to get their permits faster these days, and unless you have a legitimate reason for it, you're
in the queue.
in line with everybody else, right?
And it really is about building a relationship with somebody, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
It is. It is a lot of it.
Are they still allowing self-certification?
Yeah, and I'm self-certified in Phoenix, and I've
Now,
done.
Daryl's going to ask, so you have to take a tangent now.
Oh, sorry, Daryl.
Self-certification.
No. What's the definition of self-certification?
So the city of Phoenix has a program that allows you to become a self-certified architect, structural engineer, civil engineer, landscape architect. I think that's about it, basically, where you can certify your own plans. So I can do my own plan review, basically, instead of it going through the normal city process. So let's say we're doing a high-end residence, which I actually help certify quite a few of those, even though I don't design them. So I can do it for other architects as well.
Oh, interesting.
As myself. So I might, let's say I'm doing a high-end residence that I'm trying to help expedite the permitting for. Typically, you can get that done in about 12 days for building permit, whereas if it went through a conventional plan review right now, you're probably 90 to 120 days in Phoenix. So obviously, you're charging an expediting fee for that service, but there's risk involved too. If anything comes back and has to change due to a field inspector or an audit, you can get audited through the process. Then the builder and owner have to rip it out and redo it, basically.
Oh, okay. So
it's a risk reward.
It is.
sure.
How does the? Oh, sorry.
I'm going to hold my finger up like this, and I'm going to say, hey, we need to take a break for a word from our sponsor.
Oh, thank you.
The way we construct is changing. Technology, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, manufacturing, off-site construction, high-velocity construction. These aren't things you would typically associate with construction. They are at MAC Prefab. The way we construct has changed. Welcome to high-velocity construction. Welcome to MAC Prefab. Build with strength. Sustain with steel.
Okay, I'm sorry, JJ. You may continue.
Well, in my old person memory bank, I already forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, yes. Liability. So again, for the people listening and watching, when you go to self-certify, how does the liability change to you as well?
Yeah, well, technically...
Or added liability.
Yeah, there's a little additional liability, but we're liable for everything no matter what.
Right, so it's still under your
The city
professional
is-
liability or
yeah.
your errors and omissions.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
the city is never liable for anything.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it changes a little bit, though, in that, I will say there's a lot more requirements on the self-certified plan review. So it does take a lot more, going through everything with a fine-tooth comb.
But again, if it's that important to the developer or capital stack, they approach you and they're like, hey, speed is of the essence.
Sure.
Do whatever you can.
Right. Yep.
Other than that, then, is there anything else that you're seeing to help mitigate the situation with these backlogs at the different municipalities?
Yeah, I would say that people are going at risk a little sooner with construction documents. So you might be starting construction documents when you're in for preliminary site plan review nowadays, where in the past you might wait on that, to make sure there's no drastic changes or anything. Nowadays we'll go at risk and get CDs going, with the whole goal being the minute you get your preliminary site plan approval, you would submit for building plan review. So instead of a lag in there making sure everything is good, we're taking a little bit of a risk, kind of trying to get prepared.
Yeah, interesting. So now we touched on technology a little bit, but where do you see your profession going in the next 5, 10 years or so?
Well, I think it's the BIM is only going to get more and more, involved. I think it's going to get. We're already sharing 3D model files with contractors and even sub-consultants, so to make their work easier. I think that's going to become more and more prevalent, and I think there's actually going to become some automation between what we're, designing and production. So prefabrication, just like you're involved in. But
hopefully I can speak to this.
No, I love it. This is why I went here, because we've had this conversation before.
Connecting you two, if I have a contract and I'm working with you and you're a sub-consultant to us, I want it to just roll right into a SKU and a PO and a, forget the whole submittal process. We want that just streamlined right there. And then my utopian dream is that it's all done on blockchain.
That's actually why I was trying to shove this into it. No, and I mean that I think that's ultimately where we're going to wind up going.
Yeah, we will.
I would agree with that for sure.
And then the guy or gal in the field, they'll be having some sort of Oculus on that guides them right through your model.
Google Glass or whatever.
Yeah. I mean that is the utopian dream, but it's not that far away.
No. I just recently had a conversation with the gentleman who's into AR, and I didn't even know what AR was. He was talking about AR.
Accounts receivable?
Yeah, accounts receivable. Yeah,
I'm into AR.
Yeah, augmented
Monthly,
reality,
right.
and he actually sells it, and it's it's a more robust than Google Glass, but yeah, in the field, guys with hard hats with the lenses, down, and they're looking at the built environment against drawings that are in their vision, it was a mind blower. And he actually built a bench. You know, he had designed it in REVIT, and then he was building this bench that wasn't there, but yet he was looking at pieces and the whole plan as he was putting it together, so he could tell if pieces were in the right place and all that. So, yeah, there's some interesting.
Well, here's one. Like, I think this is a great testimony for both of you, since you two have worked together before.
Mm-hmm.
Is your BIM modeling at your production facility tailored to take his stuff and just go right to production, or do you still have some barrier? Not because of you being you, but I'm just saying the technology. Do you still have barriers to overcome to streamline that?
I think for the most part that's already. I mean, that's done. You can speak more to that than I would, but I mean, like if we get very early in design, then for us, we would prefer. We have not been in this position with Lance, but we would prefer to do the model, the BIM model, or the REVIT model. I'm sorry, I keep saying BIM. The REVIT model of the wall panel layout, and provide that to the architect to be distributed among the MPE guys, so that they can start working from that, knowing where all the structural members and everything are. We haven't been able to that place. It's kind of gone the backwards way.
Right. You answered the question, but you answered it in the backwards fashion.
I think it'll get there eventually, but I think it's more of a collaborative model sharing
through
the process.
Yeah,
I agree. Right. And we already do that oftentimes. There's BIM 360, which allows you to share a REVIT model in the cloud, basically, and you can have multiple work groups working on the same model. That's kind of where it's going to go but it's going to go, instead of just between architects and engineers, it's going to now get into subcontractors or suppliers.
The supplier is the key now.
Yeah,
we're already going to the subs.
Right.
We have to get to the supply chain earlier and more in a more delineated fashion.
And I think that whole thing is a win. Yeah.
Like an example would be like on a project that we're working on, we obviously have to design the walls first or lay them out. Then we could hand them over to somebody like Robert's team, and they would do their wall layout for their actual studs and so forth in our model and give that back to us. But we still got to loop in that sub-consultant for the electrical and plumbing to get the holes in the right places. And if those guys aren't using REVIT, then,
that's what happens. So what happens when that is the case?
Yeah.
When
they have to, now it's more time on your part, your team's part, because they need to meet with the electrical engineer and the subcontractor even and coordinate, hey, here's how we're going to run everything. And a lot of that comes from the subcontractor too.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you can draw wiring diagrams or plumbing diagrams all day long, and it doesn't mean the guy in the field is going to use that, right? I mean, he's going to do it the way he knows best.
And I think we all know, the three of us sitting here and a lot of the listeners, that the BIM and IPD, that's been kind of the glass ceiling up till now, is those last few non-adapters of how do you overcome that. Because it's the cog in the wheel.
Yeah, and it's that
so
way. So,
Daryl, for IPD, we already talked about BIM. IPD is the integrated project delivery. So it takes all the cool stuff that Lance does in our industry, and it coordinates it into a throughput, or how do you get it into production. Yeah. That's a fancy way of saying it.
Yeah.
It's hard to force that. A lot of the government projects that we've worked on have been getting further along than any private projects doing that, because they can dictate it, basically.
Yeah, because they can force
Flash detection, Navisworks, all that stuff, becomes key.
Yeah, clash detection you mentioned. So, that to me, now, in the architecture world, is that really something that you see a lot? I mean, get involved a lot in, is clash detection, or is that really more of a MEP?
No,
piece?
We've had to do it on, again, government projects, typically not in the private sector. Now, if we were doing something for Intel or something like that, obviously you're going to do a lot of that. And I think they even have their own in-house.
They do.
People yeah. So private sector, it's not something that we typically do a lot of, but we oftentimes, we model ductwork and plumbing and things like that before we even get our consultants on board to know it's going to work, I don't like...
Makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
So let's stay on this thing, but let's switch. We've been talking about us, like our fraternity, our group, how we get the projects delivered. Lance, I'd like you to explain and kind of talk through how this has been transformative to how you interact with your clients. Because let's be honest, a lot of times, us in our industry, we've been looking at 2D so much that we can interpret it to 3D. We have this whole group of owners and new people in the construction that without 3D, they can't visualize anything.
Right.
So talk us through how that's been either helping, hindering. I assume it's helping. How you can collaborate with your owners and developers.
Yeah, so it's really changed a lot. And earlier, I think I mentioned at one point I had 20 employees, and now we're down to 10. But we do 2 to 3 times more work with 10 people because we're able to model everything so much quicker. So you spend more time designing in 3D, because we literally start designing in 3D from day one. So if you came to me with a schematic project, here's what I'm looking for, and we start designing it, the next day or even the day after, we could get you some preliminary 3D views of what that's going to look like, which before would have been way down the road.
Right.
So it's much, much faster. So I think it helps the design process. And we actually get to spend more time designing, though, also, because while we're modeling it, we're also starting the construction drawings.
Right.
So it's kind of a mindset that has to change with people, where you're like, we have a schematic design phase, a design development phase, and a construction drawing phase. And, AIA contracts are built on billing X percentages of each of those phases. It's really it's a linear line, and it's just what point in time do you stop and look at it? If that makes sense.
No, it does for me. I think it's invaluable because I'm usually on a lot of these calls, well, they're not calls, they're Zoom or go-to meetings or whatever, where it's so nice now that our design partners like you, they're walking the owner through and the owner goes, stop.
Right. What's that?
Lance,
right.
that tree is in the line of my view out of my office to the koi pond. Well, let's move the tree.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah. And it's super helpful to be able to do that. So I think it helps people make decisions faster.
Right.
So it streamlines the process. And like I said, we get to spend a little more time on design. It used to be that design was a smaller percentage and the construction drawings were, 60% of a contract probably. And that's really flip-flopped, where the majority of the work is now done more in the front end phase, which I think leads to a better product.
Yeah.
I know this sounds really kind of awkward, but I would say that if I was to quiz my team, who actually builds and executes on this stuff, they would rather look at the model than any CDs.
Right.
Is it technically the exact same thing? No. But they're also experienced at what they're doing. They know the codes. They know the standards. Like your 400 pages of library content.
Right.
They would much rather look at the model because they know those details by heart, right?
Right.
And so do most of the contractors, trades, all those kind of things. So I think it's just invaluable. Now it's been around for a long time. It's just how much on a daily basis is everyone using it? That's the $4 million question. And like you said, Lance, it's being forced more and more. Those of us that were early adapters, we embraced it, but then we also kind of hit our own glass ceiling because if you couldn't get the surrounding people to embrace it, you were kind of on your own island for a long time.
Right. I mean, right now, at the end of the day, our work product is still a paper set of drawings.
Unfortunately.
And a spec book, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's going to change. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that we have to basically write an instruction manual for somebody to go build something that has no clue at all of to what we're trying to explain, right?
No, you
So it
have
has
to
to be
assume, you have
clear.
to assume that.
Right,
You have to assume
right.
they don't know what they're talking about.
Right. So you've got to make it as understandable as possible
Yeah.
to anyone. But I think the 3D will get there even more.
So, as an architect and as a community-based guy that's been here long enough, what's your... He kind of went down the technical path with you, but where are your desires kind of interpersonally as an architect and a community guy? Like, where do you want to take the next 5 to 10? He asked it more, you know what I'm saying? I'm asking him a little bit deeper, like, where do you want to take what you and your organization represent to architecture into the community? What's on your, dream list?
Well, I mean, I don't have any aspirations to do 100-story buildings or anything like that, but
Good luck with that getting through P&Z.
right. Yeah. I think it's just furthering technology.
By Sky Harbor.
Yeah. I think it's furthering technology kind of in the built environment, using new methods, new, technologies, everything from especially the HVAC, mechanical type stuff to even the systems that we're constructing the buildings out of, making it efficient and, better, basically. So I'm a huge proponent of alternative building systems, and I think it's
Life cycle costs and things like
yeah,
that.
yeah, not so much from a lead standpoint. I
No.
mean, if people want lead, we do lead. We try to do everything lead-like and just,
If you want a pretty sticker on the front of your building, that's great.
yeah. I mean, it's a huge cost to owners and everything, but we try to be energy efficient and energy conscious with everything we do, regardless of, what process it has to go through.
Are you seeing owners and developers a more sophisticated bunch that are asking up front for newer, cleaner, all of those pieces and parts? They just know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, like a great example is obviously there's a ton of multifamily construction going on around the valley right now.
Sure.
You walk into a 4-story stick frame, typical apartment building right now. You go down to that ground floor and you look at the amount of lumber that's involved on the ground floor, and you can't even hardly get an outlet or a switch in the wall because the studs are so close together.
Right.
You just look at yourself and go, why are we doing it like this? Just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a whole nother show we have.
No, but I mean, no, you answered the question.
So you're like, how can I do this better?
Yeah,
There's a better, faster, cleaner, more efficient way to do this that's not as, material intensive, not as labor intensive.
And even taking to the next level, wanting to produce net zero buildings, and
we have net zero buildings that are completed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the gentleman we spoke about earlier. Yeah. So so I think that to me is the really interesting part, is that the buildings that we're seeing, ownership, developers are asking better questions and wanting better things, instead of this is the way I've done it for 20. And I still get that. I still have people tell me I've built multifamily for 20 years and it's always been just like this, and it's still going to be this way.
I think people are getting more sophisticated and they're knowing that they want higher performance.
Yeah.
Just like, your 1956 Chevy versus a new Tesla or whatever you want to compare it to. All the bells and whistles and the gadgets and the smart technology. And I want to be comfortable all the time, but I don't want to hear my air conditioning, or, I don't want glare in my eyes when I'm, all that stuff. I think people are becoming more and more attuned to, and they expect it.
Is it still driven by price, ultimately?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
The private market, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. I have these same kind of conversations, but then it always, 100% of the time, comes back to price.
But I think if you're creative enough, you can still build it and still keep pricing in line.
There's the key right there.
And that's where the prefabrication comes into play. That's where really looking at systems differently. Like, I'm a huge proponent of ductless type air conditioning systems, because the inverted technology, it's way more efficient. I mean, I should probably work for Daikin or Carrier or somebody. I try to sell their stuff so much, but just because it makes so much sense. So, sorry.
How do you have ductless?
Oh, okay. So
Explain that one to me. I'm curious.
It's pretty common out of the country. Like, when you go to foreign countries, you'll see the little wall-mounted air conditioners up on it's kind of a vertical-looking shoebox thing. It's still an air conditioner. It's still a split system. So there's a condenser outside and an air handler inside. But it's just different technology. So there's no duct work. It is blowing the air directly out of that cooling unit, because your majority of your heat or cooling loss is through ductwork. So you eliminate that, and it also allows you to zone things a lot better. So you can have an air conditioner in your bedroom, an air conditioner in your living room, right?
Yeah.
So, Daryl, think of a hotel or apartment. When you see those, that's typically what he's talking about.
Okay.
But it's becoming more commercially accepted to do it in, even office spaces where you.
But there's
to Lance's point,
and there's ceiling units now they look just like a regular supply grill, and the unit is above the ceiling, so you don't even really see it's that different. There's also ducted units that do have the same technology. It's inverted technology, so it takes alternating current, which is our normal electricity, converts it to direct current or DC, which is actually way more efficient for motors. So that is where your energy savings comes in. So like an air conditioner for your house might be a 14 SEER, whereas a ductless might be a 22 SEER, and that's the energy performance rating for the unit. So,
yeah. You've left here much smarter today than you started. It's always that.
and
we
could go into an hour on that whole just
I love this stuff.
That energy efficiency is where it's all going.
So I'm always trying to push that with my clients.
So is that where you see, that is the ultimate? That's where it's all going. People are going to go there whether we have to drag them,
Well,
push them.
the market will take us there before we will, actually.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I still find so many owners and developers that don't think of a project. And this sounds really crazy, but they do in the beginning. Think of it pro forma based, and then they get into the whole line item piece. And so we're, like you mentioned, thinking of prefab, whatever that is, prefabbing electric, HVAC, whether it's the walls or whatever. They look at that and say, well, this is the way I did it in a wood world, and this is what you're saying, and it doesn't pencil. This is more expensive without taking all of the other advantages that could become a part of that. And it's just an education piece. Are you involved a lot in the education piece?
Absolutely.
Having to explain a lot of those things to people?
Yeah, we've had to help with contractors go through every single. Okay, if we go with ductless, now we don't have to build soffits. So, what's the cost of that drywall? What's the cost of that framing? What's the cost of that paint? The guy mudding that soffit up there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Fire ratings, dampers. I mean, you can go on and on.
And there's my point.
And when you really build
really
that
don't
list-
realize how much until you start really digging.
Right, and then you realize it's almost a wash.
Right.
Or it could be a savings.
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
the client's going to own the building for 10 years, now they're in
So
a
that-
win situation.
Now you're getting into the key, because to your point, Robert, is how much of what's being built is being
Is
owned
a
by
build and
REITs
flip.
or Wall Street versus true developers. Because if they're flipping it, that changes the pro forma.
But there's also tax incentives out there now,
Bingo.
too.
Thank you. I was about to
For
go
a
to
lot
that.
of this that will offset
Massive
that.
tax
I mean, you could get
advantages.
a $1,500 cost increase to go ductless, but you get a $2,000 tax credit. That's $500 a unit. Developer's going to say, hey, I'll take that money.
I think the summary here is that if we had 3 or 4 data points before that the owners and developers were making their decisions on, that's 2 or 3 times more now. Back to what Lance is saying, the energy, the rebates, the this, the that.
Exactly.
It's just it's a deeper discussion.
Awesome. We're going to pause for another word from our sponsor.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
Okay, man.
What do you got next?
No, it just everything that I'm thinking about. It really is.
Robert's head is spinning.
No,
by the way.
it's very cool, but really that whole education piece of it now is becoming such a big part of it because there's so much out there that I'm sure a lot of owners and developers don't know about. They see the glitzy ones, the little shiny ones, and those are easy to snatch up. But tax savings and all those things. Now, the more sophisticated get it. I understand. But you do take the time to, in your design, I mean, that's kind of the thought. That's the way you're thinking now.
Yeah, I don't necessarily consider myself just a designer. I mean,
Right.
we're part of the project
Sure.
team. I mean,
Sure.
so we have to throw all those
Very
ideas
much so.
out there.
We haven't even covered,
I mean-
really what all you do other than the design, the drawing is such a minute piece of it. All of the coordination of
a lot of
documents. and having
matchmaking going on, right?
a massive amount of matchmaking. Yeah.
So one of the ones I wanted to touch on, because I see it all the time with, I have the pleasure of working with wonderful people like yourself, is I've seen a little bit of a transformation in the interiors. What call it interior design.
Sure.
I just call it interiors.
Yeah.
A lot of firms have it in-house. A lot of firms have sub-consultants that do it. The marriage of that is now much more integrated. Before it was, my wife, it was an ex-licensed interior designer, and they got kind of thrown in the corner. They were brought in at the 11th hour. Not anymore. And so I'm seeing a lot more of the integration earlier on that. Lance, any comments or suggestions of where we're going with that as well?
No, that's absolutely true. And we have several that we work with. And I used to keep an interior designer in-house all the time. But
Right.
it's gotten too sophisticated for that. So now we go out of house all the time. We have some that we work with, and they're using BIM and REVIT models, and we're exchanging the information that way. And it's
But that's the difference, right
And it
there.
starts from day one.
Yeah, once
Right.
they got into the modeling as
Right.
well, that's the game changer. Would
Right.
you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they have their whole set of construction drawings now that they'll typically do for interiors. We won't necessarily integrate that with our permit set because it's not
Yeah, right.
needed for that, but it is for the GMP or for the contractor. So
Absolutely.
right.
Anything on that?
Yeah, no, I don't have anything. Yeah, it's when people think an architecture firm, they think, oh, okay, I'm going to go to this guy. I get this all the time. So I need an architect just to go draw me a floor plan. Yeah, there's so much more to construction documents than a floor plan and a few elevations to, okay, this is the way I want it to look. Can you make it look like that? Yeah, sure. Especially, I mean, we'll work on projects together months. I mean, years. Or I say months. It's not years. You probably had some.
Oh yeah,
years.
no. A lot of times it's a couple of years. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like giving birth to an elephant. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's a lot of work.
Sorry for the
Or you
loud
start
laugh
from
there.
entitlements. You start in entitlements
Okay.
and going through that whole process, and sometimes you have to go through zoning or,
DRB and all
Yeah.
that.
And all of that, and part of that is all stuff that you will do. You'll go to city council
Absolutely.
meetings. You're involved. I mean, so it's such
Absolutely.
it's a very involved process.
Right.
And then you work together with the GCs through construction, solving issues as you go. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Give your definition of CA, and so that Daryl doesn't kill me.
It's construction administration, Daryl.
Right. So typically, an architect always is working with the team much after they do 90% of the pulling up front, hand it off to someone like us, but the CA component that's what keeps them involved throughout the duration of the project. How do you see that changing or evolving? Again, recent past or where you see it going in the future?
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the whole COVID business, and I hate talking about that, but it's reality. But
Yep.
The use of Teams meetings and Zoom and, GoTo meetings and WebEx has gotten so, proliferated through the construction industry that, I mean, there's some days where I'm in 9 meetings a day, and a lot of them are OAC, owner, architect, contractor meetings, projects under construction.
This has been the acronym show.
I was going to say,
Right.
for me, it's like, they're talking my language, but
Right.
for everyone listening, we might have to quantify it.
Right. So, so we're super involved during construction. And again, it's that whole kind of design build mentality where we're still designing through construction. I mean, there is no such thing as thinking of every single detail on a set of plans
Right.
and having it out there. Maybe for the space shuttle, but that doesn't even work sometimes.
Yeah.
So, you're always solving problems throughout construction or seeing something that you want to modify. You get a lot of sophisticated owners out there and they want to make a lot of changes. And you just kind of got to gear up and help them through it.
No, you answered it the way I wanted you to but it's always important to get your perspective where on mine, I agree with it. We don't even look at it as C anymore. It's just the continuation of how we started the
Process.
project. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's delivering the
I mean, you're
elephant,
there at
right?
the end now where, there was a lot of projects and times when it's done, see you later, and you guys came, hey, by the way, it's time to do substantial completion and come on out, Lance.
Right,
you
yeah.
know.
I mean, if you're doing a McDonald's that they've done 50 times,
Well, that's
and,
different.
that's totally different. But if you're doing a ground up project that's a, new design for, then yeah, you're out there a lot.
What, how involved, and not to put you on the spot, but how involved are you in like the peer group of other architectural friends, colleagues, that kind of thing?
Honestly, not at all.
Okay. Well, at least you're honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
But you are
my
involved.
concern is the survival and, my own business,
Yeah. Hey.
profiting and doing well. And I kind of think of it as I'm always swimming forward and I don't really want to look to the sides too much. Right.
So what are the pitfalls that you see coming? Like, what would be the warning signs that you see in the industry and your?
I guess if my phone stopped ringing, but I haven't had that problem for 23
20
years
Well,
now.
I guess
yeah.
then he doesn't need to look laterally there either.
No, I mean, I there's always a market for construction. It doesn't matter if the private economy slows down, the federal economy will get going. The healthcare industry is always growing. I mean, there's always something to design. So it's just shifting gears and staying in front of the curve.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be the only guy out there designing office buildings right now, and that's all you do.
Oh, excellent point. I mean, but then there's times when
Shopping
you want to
centers.
be that guy,
Right,
Yeah, because they're being built everywhere,
Right.
But back to the way you started the show here is your diversity.
Right.
23 years ago was what got you through all those ebbs and flows and cyclicality.
Right.
Cyclicality.
But I also think it keeps
Is that even a word?
Yeah, it's okay.
cyclical.
It is.
I think
here.
it keeps it interesting though too. That's the good thing for me is it keeps you thinking differently.
Yeah.
You're not doing the same thing every day. You're not making donuts.
Lance, what's the question that we didn't ask you today? What have you been dying to tell the audience?
I don't know.
Oh.
Don't tell them anything that they don't need to know. Yeah.
Has there ever been a time to where, there's sometimes regular human beings think they're smarter than the architect? So, for example...
Are you saying an architect's not a regular human being?
No, I mean...
Come on,
sometimes
Daryl.
it's
You
not
would be
in the
correct,
industry.
but go ahead. Yeah.
So, for my perfect example is downtown in Phoenix. 3rd Avenue, I have no clue who designed it, but the city turned, the one-way on 3rd and 5th Avenue, they turned from McDowell to about Thomas. They turned it into a one-way, but they added a whole bike lane. But what they didn't account for, in my opinion, is the right-hand turn. So they made so now they have 2 lanes and they have a bike lane. And those two, the 2 lanes go straight, correct? Mm-hmm. And on the right lane turns on the red light. But a person that is, but if a person is not going right, so now he's backed up all that traffic.
This is a pain point for you, isn't
yes,
it, Daryl?
it's a pain point.
Yeah.
So
You'll have to have a traffic engineer on for that one.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the perfect. I was just going to say, the thunder was his disclaimer. I'm not an engineer. I'm an architect.
Right.
That's an engineer's problem.
So
No,
I guess
and
the
we've
point,
got one of those coming in a future episode that will blow your mind with his answer to that. But
Yeah.
my point was, has there ever been a time where you put up something, or an architect has put up something, and it's
Not well
basically
received.
completed, and it's not well received?
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We've all been there.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know that. I can answer that.
There's one thing
Yeah.
that architecture school I think beats out of you, and is that is any sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out here.
It's not pride and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You have to be able to take criticism without getting offended because it's totally a subjective environment that you're working in.
Yeah, that's a great
Architecture school is terrible because you have all the professors there that are, not, and some of them are probably listening, but not working in the everyday world.
Right.
And it's all opinions. Do they like something or not like something? It's very subjective. And same with,
You have to be somewhat agnostic to your own design, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, a little bit. Sure. It's a fluid thing.
And you said something that I hear the construction guys say all the time about architects. It's like, well, they've never built anything, and you can't build that. They drew something that you can't build.
And
you
see,
know?
I take that personally. I love to build stuff. I'm actually,
No, and you're
build my own
I
stuff.
have
I like it.
have met the other kind
Right.
that literally would not know how
Yeah,
to
that's
build
the architect with the
Yeah,
little
there you
mock
go.
turtlenecks and the little glasses.
Yeah, but the best, it's the same. The best contractors are the ones that have done design. The best architects are the ones that have done construction. I mean,
No, and
It
you
used
understand.
it used to be the architect was supposed to be the master builder and understood
Correct.
how to build everything. And I still think it should be that way, where we're supposed to understand how to build it. Otherwise, we shouldn't be drawing it.
Yeah, and you should be at times telling the builder, this is how you need to do this. Now, I'm taking that to the extreme, but I think
There's means and methods involved there.
there
but
we
yeah,
go. Means and methods is
Right.
the term.
Right. But again, I think it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
They
I
do it
agree.
every day. So
It's just you're a team builder.
right.
That's what you are. Do you have anything else, JJ?
this has been awesome, Lance.
No, I
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
been fun.
I think there's probably about 200 other questions I can ask, but it's just more spin-off on what the content we've already
And
covered.
we will definitely have Lance back. Lance, how can people get a hold of you if they want to discuss design? I mean, do you have a waiting list? Are you open? Are you taking new clients?
We're always
Look at the
taking new
line outside
clients.
his door.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's tough because everybody is busy right now. And I like to say if somebody's not busy in this environment, there's a reason. So
Sure.
everybody's busy. But yeah, we're absolutely taking new clients and projects. And, I think it always has to be a good fit for everybody. But
Best way to get a hold of you through your website?
yeah, absolutely.
Synectic.
SDIAZ.com.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But the firm is Synectic Design
Inc.
Inc. There we go.
Incorporated. Yep.
Well, it's been fantastic. You have something else?
No, can't thank you enough, Lance.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
As we've been trying to build this program on building Arizona, it's we keep looking at all these different things. It's like contractors and subcontractors, and on the architectural forefront and engineers. Like Robert said, we've got a very unique engineer coming on in a couple weeks, and to have you here representing the architectural community, kudos to you. And
Yeah.
I think you're emblematic of what we want on the show.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely have you back. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the MAC and Bleu Show, brought to you by MAC Prefab and Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the MAC and Bleu podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and JJ Levensky on LinkedIn and Instagram, and tune in live every first and third Thursday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." Until next time, make it a great day.